In the talk, we are going to discuss a bit web browsing through XR. My name is Juan Sánchez, and I am one of the co-founders of Igalia. We have been doing open source for 20 years now. We contribute to many projects in graphics, multimedia, but also many contributions to web browsers, web engines. So one of the things we are working on now is Wolvic, this open source project for WebXR and XR devices. And I am doing, among many things, at Igalia, I do product and project management for Wolvic. So the presentation will have two parts. The first one will be a more general discussion about what it implies to bring the web experience into XR devices, both from the for the side of taking the traditional web experiences and using analogous user cases in XR, and from the point of view of the immersive web. And then in the second part, we will talk a bit more specifically about Wolvic as a project and what we are doing there. So let's start with the traditional web. As you all know, the expectation of a user that comes from PCs and portable devices is quite high, right? Nowadays, browsers are big applications that implement many things. So the first thing in the XR space is to emulate all that, like all the basic support for Windows, tabs, bookmarks, extensions like ad blockers, private mode, anything you can think about. Of course, video playback with DRM. And all that requires quite a big effort, and some web APIs are even, you need to specifically implement them for XR, right? So I'll be showing also some videos of how this looks like in the case of Wolvic. So for example, here you can see the 2D UI of the browser. It runs on a 360 environment that we control as well. I'll talk about that more later. And you can see like the basic menus and icons, and you get more or less the functionality that you have on a regular browser. You can do things like uploading files, or you can even install applications as web apps, because we have support for that, and you can even run them locally if the web app supports that. And many other things. Second thing, thinking about traditional web, is how to adapt input methods. Of course, as you know, on XR devices, you have mostly controllers or hand gestures. Now with new things coming, like eye tracking. And then it's very important, especially for like writing text is not very comfortable, so very good voice input is important. But at the same time, most of the traditional web has been optimized for years for desktops and touch screens. In many cases, websites even assume that the device that is connecting is one of those. In some cases, they use specific input methods that are not easy to translate into XR, things like pinching and dragging, or even keyboard shortcuts. So in the case of Wolvic, we all the time try to kind of emulate that we are touch screens or desktops, depending even on the website. We decide what is better in each case to try to provide the best experience for the users. So here you see an example of input methods. Just basic interaction with the browser with hand tracking, and you can click, you can scroll. We support also basic gestures from the platform. So it's quite a good experience, I think. Another important use case for the traditional web is basically consuming text and images, like reading content. We see from our users that this is also something that they often do with an XR browser. There are some limitations that depend even on the resolution of the headset, right? That can impose some limitations. So in Wolvic, we try to give flexibility to define the large windows, to optimize the size and quality of the text. One needs to be careful because too big a screen also provides a bad experience, even can be a bit painful to move the head too much. But in general, I think we can achieve a good experience for users, and some of the hardware limitations are kind of progressively being removed by just better hardware with the new headsets. So here you can see, for example, Wolvic showing the Wikipedia, and you can decide that the window needs to be a bit bigger, still in your field of vision, and well, you can also change the text size if needed. Yeah, continuing with the examples of things that coming from the traditional web are interesting for XR. We think a very important use case is just getting things done, right? Productivity. The large visual space provides a lot of opportunities for doing multiple things at the same time, using spatial syncing and memory to learn, to understand where you store information. Well, we are actually working on richer ways of presenting this information to the user. I'll comment a bit more about this a bit later. In general, we think that browsing in XR has a very good opportunity for helping us to be productive, right? This is another example of Wolvic showing 3 screens at the same time, kind of around you. You have an active screen, but you can have complementary information on the other ones. You can run a multimedia and at the same time read about it, and it's quite a good experience. Always keep in mind that seeing this in videos is obviously a kind of a different feeling, but with the headset, it feels really, really well, right? Yeah, and finally, as a last comment about the traditional web, obviously video consumption is a very important use case. An XR browser needs to also support this very well. It's actually one of the use cases that we see our users are making more suggestions or requests about. We provide the 2D and 3D stereoscopic video support, and well, even DRM support for like the traditional, the well-known platforms like Disney Plus or HBO Max. Sometimes it's a bit challenging because some of those platforms on mobile, and they assume an XR device is mobile, they kind of force you into the app. So we have to always see if we need to pretend to be a desktop and then implement DRM as if we were a desktop, basically. Yeah, here you can see kind of full screen Wolvic showing a movie in Disney Plus. And there are also possibilities to support, as I said, the 3D. In this case, it's a side-by-side video, and the browser merges the 2 images to provide the right 3D emulation. And then, yeah, this was more about like traditional use cases, but of course, with the XR devices, we have new opportunities and also new challenges, and this is what I will discuss now. The first one is the new kinds of videos, right? Obviously, the immersive video support. We are seeing that this is a space that is growing very fast. Many are distributed just using YouTube. In theory, all those videos have the right metadata, but we have even implemented a lot of heuristics in the browser, so we try to guess which kind of video we are going to show and then automatically present it for the user. If it is monoscopic or stereoscopic or 100 or 360 degrees, if it doesn't work, which does, I think, most of the time, the user can also select manually the kind of format, right? So again, we are seeing that this is quite an important use case. There's a lot of touristic content about many places, and the experience of watching this in the video is quite smooth. Modern browsers support easily 4K, 8K images, and this works quite well in modern XR headsets. This is also a trailer for a popular game. The second thing related to the immersive web is WebXR, obviously. So this is the set of APIs that the W3C is curating and improving to support all kinds of things inside the web for XR devices. In a web browser, this is implemented by what is called the web engine. But even with that, you still have to do a lot of integration work on the browser side to make sure that you support the graphical layers, to provide the input methods that interact with the website. So it's quite a lot of work, but also a huge opportunity in this space. Here you can see running on Wolvic one example of a 360 WebXR application where you can simulate a spray painting on a wall, which also supports AR, by the way, this application. Or this is another one where you can paint quite realistically on a canvas, and it's quite nice. You can play some music while you do it. And all this is, again, web technology, JavaScript, CSS and HTML with some frameworks helping. A big space that, for example, is important for some of our partners in Wolvic is education, and this connects with what I just mentioned about the video and interactive content through WebXR. We really think that XR is the best way to experience immersive information, and also distribution is much easier and much faster, right? You don't need to create a native app, distribute it through the app store. Sometimes app stores have quite strict policies about publishing, etc. And some of this content can even be distributed through YouTube or any of these very standard and popular channels, right? So there are plenty of examples of this. Again, this is a 360 video running on Wolvic, and it's 2 pilots explaining how to fly a plane. This is an interactive experience to train the crew of a plane in different situations and how to react to different emergency situations the proper way. There are also interactive experiences built on WebXR to explore virtual museums, and you can move around using the controllers, and you can get information about the paintings in this case. This is another nice experience where you can land on Mars, and you can interact with the device there, get the interactive information about a specific mission. And yeah, all this, again, is WebXR or video, or both combined, right? And then gaming, of course. Gaming is one of the most popular use cases for now, together maybe with video, for the users of a browser. Traditionally, there were 2 challenges related to delivering large assets that are needed for the game at the beginning, right? Downloading all that in a reasonable amount of time. And then the performance, to achieve a performance that can be compared to native. And I think the evolution of the web engines during the last 5 to 10 years has been amazing, and the performance nowadays is very good. So there are examples of games that are quite complex and are fully done with WebXR and have a very good performance. There's kind of a community of indie developers working on games. An example of this is Wonderland Engine or HiVR, which are projects that we work quite a lot with in Wolvic. For example, this is a game that is a WebXR implementation of a popular native game, right? And it's very complete. It has a lot of different features and possibilities. It runs very smoothly on modern XR devices. There are many other games, right? This is just to learn climbing. It's quite nice when you have the headset on, a bit more difficult to perceive here. So yeah, we can see that there is the combination of the traditional web with modern options, immersive options, is a very powerful set of use cases with obviously a lot of challenges or work needed on the browser side. So this is the kind of motivation for us. It was the motivation for us to create, to develop the Wolvic project. Wolvic started, a bit of history now. Wolvic started as Firefox Reality. Many of you might remember this project by Mozilla in September 2018. So 5 years ago, basically, and it was a quite good project for the devices of that generation. It had initial support for the WebXR APIs at that time. Things changed quite a lot in 5 years. But then, for a number of reasons, Mozilla didn't continue with the project, and for almost 2 years, it was kind of stopped, and nobody was developing it. So we are good partners with Mozilla. We have been working with them on Firefox for a long time, and we decided to take over the project early last year, so more or less a year and a half ago. And we relaunched it with a new name as Wolvic, right? That's how the project started. In terms of architecture, to explain a bit more what Wolvic actually is, we could say we have 6 different pieces that work together. There's a custom 3D library that runs the 360 environment and allows us to have a lot of flexibility with the UI. And then in this environment, we paint mostly for now Android UI components. So our UI is Android-based for now. It could be different in the future. And then underlying this, there's a web engine, which does a lot of work, obviously. And originally, it was Gecko. Now we are working also on Chromium. We reuse a lot of building blocks from Mozilla for building the browser to avoid reinventing the wheel. So things like bookmarks management, or things like how to decide which search engine you are going to use. They are implemented by using some of these components. Then we talk with the OpenXR driver in the device. Originally, the project was using also some native drivers supporting them, but nowadays, the majority of the devices support the OpenXR. And then we also use some platform-specific libraries for things like analytics or specific services that the hardware vendors provide that we try to also offer to the Wolvic users. So all that together is what we call the Wolvic project. Talking a little bit more about web engines, the web engine is key in a browser, obviously. It's a component that takes the CSS, HTML, JavaScript, and renders everything and allows you to interact with the website or with the WebXR experience. And as I said, originally we were using Gecko. Actually, the specific version is Gecko for Android, the package that Mozilla maintains. And it works quite well. It's what is running in the current versions. But we have been working for 6 months on Chromium backend as well for a number of reasons. One of them, the performance is very good if you use Chromium. And also the AR support and the support for kind of the latest WebXR APIs, right? So we have a booth here, and in the booth we are showing the first demo, the first public demo of the Chromium backend running. And we will release officially during November as well. We will maintain both versions. So it's not that the Gecko version is going to disappear, because there are also some nice things of using this Mozilla technology. But we will do both at the same time during next year. And then another feature that is very important about Wolvic is that it is multi-platform. It's not focusing on just one device or two. We try to support as many as possible through the OpenXR abstraction layer, obviously, but there's still quite a lot of the device-specific work you need to do. You have to do some things are related to the OpenXR driver of each platform doing not exactly the same thing than the others. So we need to do workarounds or some fixes. And then the form factor, right? The size, the resolution, the size of the screen, the field of view, the way you interact, the way hand tracking works. There are quite a lot of subtle differences that you need to adjust if you want the browser to run properly and as a native browser in each of the devices, right? So currently, we officially support the Oculus Quest 2 and 3, the latest Pico devices, and the Huawei VR glasses. And we are about to release the packages for the Lenovo A3 and the Lynx R1. We are also working on other things, but they are still not public yet. But soon we will have a few more devices. An area where we are quite active is UI, the UI metaphor. We originally, as you saw in the videos, the browser was, and is still a bit kind of traditional in the sense that you see a 2D browser with menus. And we are going to try to progressively remove these limitations and moving from, for example, just 3 windows, same size, to a very flexible way of organizing windows of different sizes. You can have also more. We are going to allow very soon configuring the distance between the window and the user, which is something that many users are requesting as an interesting feature. And we are also playing with more 360-oriented ways of presenting the information. So the bookmarks maybe don't need to be a menu hidden somewhere. They can be around you. You can take them and maybe throw them to the tab and open them, these kind of things, right? Because we control the 360 environment, I think we can be quite ambitious about how we are going to do these UI metaphors. And finally, we are fully open source. We are developed in the open. We keep the Mozilla license from the initial times of the project. Everything happens in GitHub. And the project is collectively funded by a group of companies, most of them device manufacturers, but also other kinds of companies. And also there's an open collective associated to Wolvic, which is a platform where you can, even as an individual or a small company, you can contribute and you get some participation in the project through participating in the roadmap definition or these kind of things. We are distributing the project in 3 app stores, and more are coming. And there's a public roadmap where you can find basically a lot of the things that I mentioned today. So that's it. As conclusions, we really think that web browsing is a key use case in general for XR that enriches what users can do with a device from day one, because you get benefits from what the web offers, which is a lot. And there are specific use cases like education, productivity, or video playing in general, or gaming, which are what we see are getting more traction. And the web lowers, as I said earlier, the path to experimenting and distributing, and can be a very interesting field for innovation, together with native platforms within WebXR and 360 videos have a lot of potential. And we see Wolvic as a project that can be part of the commons, part of the open web, fully open source, fully. We really welcome people to contribute on any way, as users, reporting, or as developers. And yeah, we want to make it a really 360-oriented browser that is thinking fully in how to enrich these kind of devices. So this is it. Thanks a lot for your attention, and I don't know if we have some time for questions.
Thank you very much, Juan. Please give him a round of applause. We still have time for 1 or 2 questions. Is there anyone who would like to ask Juan about his insights that he gave today? Please raise your hand, and I come with a microphone. Please. Please say your name and...
Thank you. Hello. My question is that in your list of supported devices and platforms, I see that you have all kinds of Android-based devices. Do you plan or not plan to support Microsoft HoloLens?
Okay, so that's a good question, because we have been thinking about that quite a lot. As I said when I explained the architecture, there's a part of the browser that is quite Android-specific, which is basically the UI, the high-level part of the UI. Not all of it, because the library is portable, the 3D library, but the widgets, basically. So it is a bit of work to port it to non-Android platforms, but it can be done. And we have it as a future idea. We will probably eventually do it, but not in the short term. Probably at some point next year, maybe we will try to support some other platforms.
Time for another very quick question, maybe? Yes?
But yeah, because you mentioned the 360 video, do you also support spatial audio with them?
Yes, in Gecko, we depend a bit for multimedia support. We depend a bit on the web engine. So in Gecko, there's a bit of support for that. We even contributed some fixes upstream to Gecko to make sure that it worked, but it doesn't work fully. It works in some cases, depending on how you do spatial audio. And then with Chromium, we will have full support for that. So I think with that version, it should be working perfectly, yes. Starting in November, as I said.
Thank you very much, Juan. Thank you for this presentation, and please give him another round of applause. Thank you.